Welcome to Epic Stories. A wealthy woman dies alone in a grand but crumbling estate. Her final moments are silent, peaceful. But behind that stillness lies a secret so dark, so twisted, that it shakes Hercule Poirot to his core. This is the story of the mysterious death of Margaret Raines and the last will that changed everything. Margaret Raines was 78 years old, the last in a line of old English aristocracy. She had no children, at least not officially. Her only known family were her three nieces, Clarissa, Marion, and Beatrice. The Raines estate, once a jewel of the countryside, had grown cold and silent over the years. And so had Margaret. She had become a recluse, only seen at church or in the garden, wearing black, walking with a cane, and always with a distant, haunted look in her eyes. Then, on a fog-drenched October morning, Margaret was found dead in her study. The housekeeper, Mrs. Ellison, discovered her slumped over her writing desk, one hand clutching a half-finished letter. The door had been locked from the inside. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no forced entry. The windows were shut tight. The doctor ruled it a natural death, heart failure perhaps. At 78, it didn't seem strange, but something about the scene felt too perfect, too staged. Still, the family mourned, and arrangements were made for the reading of her will. But before the solicitor could even open the envelope containing Margaret's last wishes, another document surfaced, one that no one had seen before. A new will, dated just 3 weeks prior to her death. A legally valid will, witnessed and signed, and entirely real. And it named a single beneficiary, a woman called Iris Delacroix. Who was Iris? The nieces were outraged. Iris was a name they had barely heard. A foreign nurse hired to care for Margaret after a brief illness in early autumn. She had only stayed for 21 days before leaving without explanation. Now she stood to inherit everything: the estate, the fortune, even the paintings and family heirlooms. The nieces immediately cried foul. They accused Iris of manipulation, of trickery. They claimed Margaret was mentally unfit in her final days. But with no proof, the solicitor could only follow the law. Desperate to stop the inheritance, the family contacted the one man who might uncover the truth: Hercule Poirot. Poirot arrived at the Raines estate days later. The sky was gray. The house, surrounded by skeletal trees, loomed like a monument to forgotten time. Inside, he was greeted by silence, awkward glances, and an air of resentment. No one was pleased to see him. But Poirot was not there to win affection. He was there to find answers. He began with the scene of the death, the study. He examined the desk, the ink blotter, the half-written letter Margaret had clutched. It read, in her careful script, "The truth must out. I can no longer live with the burden." A cryptic phrase. What burden? What truth? Poirot was intrigued. Next, he turned to the family. Clarissa, the eldest niece, had an air of arrogance about her, confident but desperate. Poirot learned she was deeply in debt. Her husband's business had failed, and she had quietly begun to pressure Margaret for a loan weeks before her death. Marion, the middle niece, was guarded. Poirot sensed resentment. She admitted she had clashed with Margaret over an old family matter, but would not say more. Beatrice, the youngest, was fragile, nervy. She claimed she was away visiting a friend the night Margaret died, but gave no details. Poirot noted every hesitation, every glance. Then came Iris Delacroix. She was quiet, polite, and deeply uncomfortable. She did not want the inheritance, she said. She had cared for Margaret because she needed the work, and Margaret had treated her with kindness. Iris claimed Margaret had confided in her, that she had regrets, that she was tired of hiding something. But what that something was, Iris never knew. Poirot began to feel that Margaret had been trying to make peace with a buried past. He searched the private quarters, Margaret's bedroom, her writing room, and finally, a locked drawer in a carved oak cabinet. There, he found letters. Dozens of them, addressed not to her nieces but to someone signed only as L.R. The tone was heartbreaking, apologetic, full of guilt, longing, and sorrow. He read, "I should have fought harder. I should have kept you." Beneath the letters, a faded photograph. A young girl, about 10 years old, in a sailor dress. Not one of the nieces. Poirot stared. The face was familiar. And in that moment, he understood. Years ago, Margaret had a child, out of wedlock. The scandal had been hushed, the child quietly given away. No one ever spoke of it again. But Margaret had never forgotten. And somehow she had found that child again, now a grown woman, a woman named Iris Delacroix. The will was no forgery. Margaret had tried to right a wrong, to restore something she had lost, but someone in the house could not allow that truth to surface. Poirot studied Margaret's medicine, bottles labeled with precise dates. He found that someone had tampered with the dosage. The medication Margaret took daily for her blood pressure had been altered. The dosage too low, enough to weaken her heart slowly, invisibly. It was murder by design, subtle, calculated. And Poirot now knew who had done it. He gathered everyone in the study, just as Margaret had once sat. The fire crackled. Tension hung in the air. Poirot spoke quietly but firmly. He recounted Margaret's past, her secret child, her desire to make peace. He revealed the letters, the photograph, the tampered medicine. And then he turned to Clarissa. Clarissa broke. She had discovered the truth by accident, found one of the letters weeks ago. When she realized Iris was the secret heir, she panicked. Her debts had mounted. She feared losing everything. So she began to act. First, subtle lies. Then, she tampered with the medicine. When Margaret began to weaken, she simply waited. Poirot's voice was steady as he detailed it all. The changing of the pill labels, the altered diary entries, the servant who saw her in Margaret's room late at night. The moment was inevitable. Clarissa cried out, swearing she didn't mean to kill her aunt, only to frighten her, to stop the will from going through. But the damage was done. The police arrived. Clarissa was taken away in handcuffs. Iris, stunned, chose not to take immediate possession of the estate. Instead, she walked the grounds alone that evening, tears in her eyes. She had never asked for wealth, only for belonging. What she inherited was not just a house, but a legacy of pain. Poirot left in silence, his coat brushing against the fallen autumn leaves. Another case closed. But as he boarded the train back to London, he whispered to himself, "Justice? Perhaps. But no justice erases a lifetime of regret." And so ends the tale of the last will of Margaret Raines, Poirot's most twisted inheritance case. A case where love, guilt, and greed collided, and where the truth, though buried for decades, finally came to light. If you found this mystery gripping, make sure to subscribe for more Poirot investigations, classic whodunits, and dark stories from the world of crime and conscience.